Hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan from Boredom Sated, and this is my one of our first attempts into going into 5th edition multi-classing. Now, there's lots of different classes you can just always multi-class into to make a character more powerful. If it's a melee character, you always multi-class it. You can always multi-class into Paladin just to make it more powerful. Warlock has multiple things that can make it so you just automatically make yourself more powerful. Taking a couple of levels in anything if you can justify to make it so you can just become more powerful. But that's not really my goal here. I want to try to make it so that we can come up with some fun and entertaining builds to play around with that are also overpowered. So the build that we're going to talk about today is essentially a sniper build. The idea behind this build is that we want to have an incredibly high initiative modifier. We want to have a very high initiative modifier, and the reason why we want to have a very high initiative modifier is because our goal is basically to make it so that the assassination rogue's ability of going before the enemy if they don't know we're coming, and a lot of GMs basically just say, yeah, if you're going before them and they, and the surprise round is if you shoot before they get a chance, then they're technically surprised. The assassination part of a rogue says that you automatically crit on all of your attacks as long as you're going before them on your first round. Now, normally a rogue only gets one attack. You do double your sneak attack, all that fun stuff. But I want to maximize that out and play around with some other abilities. So, first, we'll talk about race. The race that we would be talking about for this one would be Wood Elf. The reason for that is because Wood Elf gets a +2 dexterity and +1 wisdom. You automatically get perception as a skill, which is always nice because this is also going to end up being a skill build. And you also automatically get proficiency with longbow, which you do not get as a rogue, so you can start with a longbow. And the other fun part is Mask of the Wild. What Mask of the Wild does is says that you can attempt to make a hide check even if you are only lightly obscured by foliage, heavy rain, falling snow, mist, or other natural phenomena. So this makes a very interesting way to be able to play your character and makes it so that if you really want to, you can be a forest sniper, and this will work very, very well. So at that point, we go into Rogue. We're going to, there's two builds we're going to talk about here. First, I'm going to go over the simpler build. The simpler build is going to start as 13 levels of Rogue. You don't start with all 13, but it's 13 levels of Rogue and 7 levels of Ranger. So for Rogue, 13 levels of Rogue, we're going Assassination Rogue. What do we get for being a Rogue? First, you get expertise, and you're going to get it again at 6th level. What that means is that you get 4 double proficiency skills. 4 double proficiency skills is pretty nice. Sneak attack. When we're going into this version of the build, and we have 14 levels of Rogue, we will have, or 13 levels of Rogue. It's 13-7. You will have 7d6 in sneak attack. So 7d6 in sneak attack, again, pretty solid. You also get Cunning Action. Cunning Action is a very useful ability. You can use your bonus action to try to hide or to retreat. Dash, disengage, or hide. This is a very useful thing to have for you, especially if you want to hide so that you can then take more ranged attacks with sneak attack. Next, of course, you're getting Uncanny Dodge, Evasion, and all that fun stuff. And then we're going to get to a Reliable Talent, and we'll talk more about Reliable Talent later. But these are the basic abilities you get as a rogue. And then we also talk about the rogue archetype, and that's where we're getting into some of our fun parts because that's where we get to Assassination. So first, a bonus proficiency, you get proficiency with Disguise and Poisoner's Kits. Second, you get Assassinate, and that's one of our main ideas here. You have advantage on attack rolls against any creature that hasn't taken a turn in combat yet. In addition, any hit you score against a creature that is surprised is a critical hit. This is huge. Infiltration expertise, not as much. You can create false identities. It's cool for role-playing, but it's not really main part of our build here. And Imposter, same general idea. The main thing we want from Assassination Rogue is we want to make it so that we do as much damage as we can in that first round of combat. So we're going with the idea that we're going to basically get advantage and crit on our first round of attacks. we're going to take 7d6 on that attack for bonus from sneak attack, and a d8, obviously, because we're going to be using a longbow. Now, here's where we get into the other part, which is when we take Ranger. So we're taking 7 levels of Ranger. Now, one thing I'm going to mention is we are also going to be going into the alternate versions of Ranger, which is the Deft Explorer and Favored Foe options that came out in Tasha's guide. So what those do is Favored Foe makes it so that you can basically get your own version of Hunter's Mark. And it stacks with Hunter's Mark because it says you have to concentrate, but it's as if you were concentrating on a spell, so it doesn't count as concentration. But basically, when you hit a target, you can, for 1 minute, you can basically deal additional damage to that target whenever you hit it. It starts at a d4, and it becomes a d6 at level 6, so we're going to have the d6 version of it for this build. So basically what that means is you can have an additional d6 damage on all of your attacks. Your first round, that means you're doing an extra 2d6 because crit is a thing. Next, we're doing Deft Explorer instead of Natural Explorer. There's a couple of reasons why. First, you get another double proficiency. Choose one of your skill proficiencies. Proficiency is doubled for any ability check you make with that chosen skill. You also can speak, read, and write 2 additional languages of your choice. So that's, again, very cool. Next, we get to Roving, which is at level 6, and this is an amazing ability. Your walking speed increases by 5, and you gain a climbing and swim speed equal to your walking speed. As an elf, you start at 35, which means you now have a walking speed of 40, and a climbing speed of 40, and a swimming speed of 40, which means that you have the ability to do all sorts of hiding and maneuvering to get yourself into great positions to get better shots. Next, you get a fighting style by being a ranger. Obviously, for this build, we would be taking archery. That additional +2 to hit is very nice. And we're going to go into some feats a little bit later, and obviously we want to have as best a +to hit as possible for that purpose. Next, we get into ranger spellcasting. For this build, you will have 1st and 2nd level spells. You want to have a decent wisdom. Wisdom will be your 2nd stat. We'll go into total stats in a little while. But basically, your general idea is that if you're doing this build correctly, even from the start, you can have yourself a 16 wisdom, as long as you're okay with the idea that you're kind of forsaking your other stats to make it so that you do as much as you can with this build. And the 16 wisdom will also help based on our secondary, secondary class, our other pick. So the next thing we're going to get is Primeval Awareness, which is, it is what it is. And then we're going to go into our Conclave. This is, of course, our choice that we would make for what kind of build we're actually going into. And the one that we're going to take for this build is Gloomstalker. Now, I do also want to mention one of the other really important parts of this ability, which is the fact that as a Ranger, you're going to get an extra attack at level 5 in Ranger, which means that you're now getting 2 attacks on your first round that, as long as you're doing it correctly, automatically crit. Now, I'm sure many of you are saying, but you don't get sneak attack on more than 1 attack. Auto-critting with extra d6s is still really nice. So getting the extra attack in is still really helpful. And if you happen to miss on the first one, you get sneak attack 1 time per round. So if you miss on your first attack, that second attack will get the sneak attack instead. Now, as I said, this build is all about doing as much as you can in the first round of combat, and that's the reason why we wanted to go Gloomstalker. So what do we get for Gloomstalker? The main thing we get for Gloomstalker is at 3rd level, we get Dread Ambusher. You master the art of ambush. You gain a bonus to your initiative rolls equal to your wisdom modifier. At the start of your first turn of each combat, your walking speed increases by 10, which lasts until the end of your turn. If you take the attack action on that turn, which we're obviously doing, you get to make 1 additional weapon attack as part of that action. If that attack hits, the target takes an extra d8 weapon damage. So now, our first round of combat, where we are getting advantage on all of our attacks and auto-critting, we now have 3 attacks. one of which adds an additional d8. So, we're using our fake Hunter's Mark. If we can, we want to put real Hunter's Mark on the round before if there's a surprise round or anything like that. But assuming you don't have that option, we have our mark, which does an additional d6 per attack. We have 3 attacks, one of which gets an additional d8 per attack. We've got 7d6 in sneak attack. So right now, we're looking at it on a critical. We're looking at 2d8 plus 16d6 on our first attack. We're looking at 2d8 plus 2d6 on our second attack, and we're looking at 4d8 plus 2d6 on our third attack. And that doesn't include our damage bonus from our dexterity, and also the fact that we will be taking sharpshooter with this build. And you'll see why we take sharpshooter with this build in a little while, but it ends up working out pretty well for you. So, other things we get with Gloomstalker is Umbral Sight. We now have Dark Vision. Dark Vision is up to 60. And the other thing, which is actually really cool, is you're adept at evading creatures that rely on Dark Vision. While in darkness, you are invisible to any creature that relies on Dark Vision to see you in that darkness. That is ridiculously cool. And 7th level, this is another very useful thing. You have honed your ability to resist the mind-altering powers of your prey. You gain proficiency in Wisdom saving throws. So now, since you're going to start this build in Rogue, Rogue gets Dex Intelligence. Now you're going to have Dex Intelligence Wisdom for your bonuses to saving throws, which is pretty cool. So those are your general abilities that you're going to be taking from Dex, from Ranger and Rogue. Where are we getting the initiative modifiers? So we're going to add +5 from our Dex because we're obviously going to raise our Dex to 20. We were going to add +3 from our Wisdom because of the fact that we're going to have our Wisdom at 16. We can start there if we want to based on our points. Finally, we're going to take Alertness as a feat. We will get 4 stat boosts with this build. 1 at 4, 1 at 8, 1 at 12 as Rogue, and 1 at 4 as Ranger. Those stat boosts are going to basically be used to make sure that your dexterity is up to a 20, and we're going to use the other 2 for Alertness and Sharpshooter. Alertness gives you the ability that you do not get, if someone basically, you're not surprised when someone is attacking you, so they don't get advantage if you didn't know they were there. And most importantly, you get a +5 bonus on your initiative modifier. So you have a +13 initiative modifier, which is really, really good for being able to go first. So a +13 initiative modifier does really well at going first, but there's a few things we need to talk about with that, which is that doesn't seem that high. Well, I looked at a lot of the high-level monsters. You know what the Ancient Dragon's initiative modifier is? A lot of them's initiative modifier is either 0 or as high possibly as 2. Take a look at a max level demon. Guess what their initiative modifier is? Yeah, you guessed it. 2. How about a devil? Yeah, 2. A lot of the big creatures don't have great initiative modifiers. Even if you take a look at the mighty Tarrasque, I believe the Tarrasque has an initiative modifier of 2. It might be as high as 4. So you having a +13 is a lot higher than them. The chances of you going first are very, very good. Now, what is your bonus to hit with these attacks? Because we have the fighting style and having an additional +2 to hit, again, I'm making the assumption you have no magic items, even though if you're actually fighting any of those 20th level monsters, you probably have magic items. You have a +13 to attack base with your weapon with advantage. So therefore, you have a +8 to attack with advantage if you've gone... you've got a +8 to attack with advantage if you've gone the sharpshooter route. And +8 to attack with advantage isn't bad. Now, one thing you can do if you really want to maximize your stats out and not mind any stats other than dexterity and wisdom is you can start with a 17 in dex and a 16 in wisdom, take 1 stat boost to get yourself up to a 19, and then take your next one to take elven accuracy, which will raise your stat up to 20, and make it so that if you have advantage, you get you can re-roll one of your dice each time. So you get basically double advantage. So you've got 3 dice instead of 2 for each of those rolls. +8 with 3 rolls, even an AC of 23 or 24, you're still almost guaranteed to hit. It's not a guarantee, but it's very good chance, like 75% chance or something like that. I'm not doing the math in my head for it right now. So that's the first version of the build. This build is a lot of fun. It's got a lot of power to it. It does a lot of damage. And with Sharpshooter, you're adding 15 to your damage for each of these. Again, this is without magic items, which means I did the average damage for each of these. On your first attack, where you're doing the 2d8 plus 16, d6 plus 15, the average damage on that is going to be, I believe it's 78. 78, 80, something like that. Your second attack, where you're going to be doing 2d8 plus 2d6 plus 15, we're looking at 31 damage, and then your third attack, your average is 40 damage. So you're putting out 160, 170 points of damage on average in that first round of combat before anyone is even gone. Most 20th level monsters, they have around double that in hit points, which means you just took the boss and hit it for half before it got even a chance to go, and before anyone else in the party had a chance to go. That's pretty damn strong. Now, in later rounds, you're not going to be as powerful, but you're still getting 2 attacks. You're still going to be able to hide. You're still going to be able to get sneak attack. You're still going to be able to get advantage. Just no auto crits. So the second version of this changes it up a little bit. I wanted to add something a little fun. I wanted to give you guys a little bit more of an option, and it makes it so you're even better at skills. And what you do with that is you reduce the number of rogue levels from 13 to 11. You reduce the number of ranger levels from 7 to 6. So rogue-wise, you really don't lose much other than the fact that you lost one of your ability score improvements. Ranger-wise, the only thing that you lose is you lose the wisdom saving throw. And what we're going to add to that is we're going to add 3 levels of Bard. So why are we adding 3 levels of Bard? First, we get Song of Rest, or Song of Rest gives you a little bit of bonus, gives you a d6 whenever you take a short rest. It helps. The main reason why is a couple of things, but first is Jack of all trades. Jack of all trades gives you half of your proficiency modifier to any ability check that does not use your proficiency modifier. What is an ability check? This is an argument that a lot of people have had. An ability check basically is anything that's not an attack roll and not a saving throw. Which means, guess what? Initiative is an ability check. So you get to add half your proficiency modifier to your initiative. So our initiative now is going to be a +16. That's high. Now, sadly, because you're only adding half of your modifier, not your full modifier, you cannot use reliable talent for it, but it is what it is. Next, at level 3, you get 2 more expertises, which means your expertise number is now up to 7. And the Bard College we are going to pick with this build is we are going to go with the College of Lore. So why do we take the College of Lore? First, we get 3 more skill proficiencies. And second, it's the only way to make cutting words do anything. Now, first, we're probably not going to have a high charisma modifier. It's probably only going to be like a +1, because we're really taking the Bard for the extra skills, the extra proficiencies, and really we're just doing it so we can get Jack of all trades. Let's be honest. Jack of all trades is kind of great. But what cutting words does, if you do use that, is you can use your Bardic Inspiration to roll a Bardic Inspiration die and subtract the number rolled from someone trying to attack you within 60 feet on an attack roll, ability check, or damage roll. So you can basically nerf someone trying to hit you once per day, which doesn't suck. Now, why do we go into this? First, we go into this to have the +16 to your initiative instead of +13. More initiative is good. I wanted to get a high number, and it's basically the highest number I could reasonably get by staying within the normal parameters. If you roll for stats instead of taking the base values, all of these things become so much stronger. But I'm not going to do you roll really well, then great. No, this is based on having your worst possible scenario for stats and having no magic items. So it is what it is, and this is a minimum power build. So obviously, if you have magic and if you have rolling stats, you probably have a more powerful build using the exact same things that I'm showing you here. Now, skills and expertises. There are a total of 18 skills in D&D 5th edition. With this build, 7 of those 18 skills will get double proficiency. You will have total number of skills because of this build. You get from Rogue 4. You get from whatever your other thing is, or whatever your profession is going to be, you get 2. So that's 6. You get 1 from being an elf because you get perception, so that's 7. You get 1 more for going into ranger, so that's 8. Double for multi-classing. You get 1 more for multi-classing into bard, so that's 9. And then you get 3 more for going into bard, for going into the College of Lore, which means you have 12 skills with proficiency. 7 of the 12 skills have double proficiency. 5 skills have single proficiency. And the remaining 6 skills have half proficiency because you have Jack of all trades. This is the ultimate skill monkey. And by that, it's just an old saying. I apologize if anyone finds offense to that. But man, are you good at skills. More than a third of the skills, you have double proficiency. If it's a dexterity skill and you chose double proficiency for it, you are very, very, very good at it. You have a plus 19 to the skill. And then you also get reliable talent, which means your minimum roll is a freaking, you have plus 17 to it. So your minimum roll is a 27 for double proficiency dexterity-based skills. Wisdom ones, your minimum is 25. It's ridiculous. So you've got a lot of skill-based bonuses. You've got a lot of other fun bonuses to it. The Bard build obviously lowers the power a little bit because you lose 1d6 from your sneak attack. But the extra initiative, the extra skills, and the fact that you've gone into a third class for the fun of it kind of adds to that to make it so that it's worth it. And if you have, again, rolled your stats, you don't really need the other stuff and can still go into sharpshooter and can still go into alertness. But do realize that with the Bard version, you do only have 3 stat boosts instead of 4. So, let me know what you guys think of the build. Let me know if there's something you guys think that you could improve on it. There's multiple ways you could make it a little bit better here and there, but I didn't want to go into some of those, basic standard classes, and I didn't want to go for the super high armor class for this one, so obviously the armor class here is not ridiculously good. But all of the other stuff is fun, all of the other stuff is there, and your first round of damage is going to be ridiculously high, and if you roll well, you could kill a dragon in a single round. So, let me know what you guys think. Please comment, subscribe, let us know if there's anything specific you want us to do. If there's a multi-class build you want me to build around a specific class for, let me know. I'm perfectly willing to do that. That's all I got, so I hope you guys had a good time, and we'll see you next time.